I was
Okay.
thinking about like what today when you wrote the whole list of things, I was like, I don't know, yeah, that sounds good. I was thinking how we could talk about like the fairies because we both have had experiences with them. Like you with your trip and like me with it was a way smaller experience, but I thought we could talk about that or I don't know. Unless
Yeah.
if there's something else.
Let's talk about fairies.
Let's talk about fairies. Let's.
I mean, the thing is that like, I don't know, I have to say, like, I kind of hate that, like, okay, so I saw fairies when I was on drugs, except that it was like, I did shrooms, magic mushrooms, like a year and a half ago for the first time and the only time, and they were awesome and they were great, but like, whatever, I was in the Redwood Forest and I'm not obsessed with fairies. I don't know anything about fairies. I mean, like, I know who Tinkerbell was, and I watched like Willow or something and Ferngully or something when I was little, but it's not like I'm like a fairy person or I wasn't going after fairies or whatever. I just like, there was fairies everywhere in the Redwood Forest. And I felt like, okay, if I would have done mushrooms in my bedroom or in an office, or I don't think I would have seen fairies. I don't think I was seeing fairies because just I was on mushrooms. I actually think, and this is crazy, but I think it's some kind of dimension opener or portal opener. And
Definitely.
like, I think those lived there. Like I saw, like the first thing I saw, like when my vision sort of changed was I was sitting next to this tree and I looked over and there was like a gnome, like a little garden wooded
Like it's
old man.
typical
Like, yeah, like like, I mean, he didn't have a red hat or the pointy red hat or whatever, but he definitely had like the old man face and he was almost like he was made of wood in a way, but he
wow.
wasn't. But he had like that like really, really earthen tone colors to him. And I was like, whoa. And he kind of like looked at me like, don't look at me, and then turned into the tree and like went into the tree. And I was like, wow, what is that? Whoa, whoa. And then I started looking around and there was all these little green fairies buzzing around and they were like this big and they had their own language that didn't even sound like English, but they sang to me. And I even, I tried to record, like I actually have a recording of what they sang to me, but it's me singing what they're singing to me as they're singing it to me. So I maybe can put that in. I don't know.
Yeah. I want to hear it.
It's,
So they acknowledged you and were singing to you, not
yeah.
like the gnome or the leprechaun or whatever you want to say he was, that
Yeah.
like he just kind of he ignored you. He realized you were there and he was like, oh, I'll see you later. But they
Well,
actually
like at first they were flying around everywhere and like I don't think they thought I could see them, and then at some point like one kind of figured out that I was able to see it, and then like the message just sort of spread, and then they all like came over to me and were like speaking gibberish and nonsense to me, and I had no idea what they were saying, and it was weird because they were cool, but there were these, I think they were nymphs, if that's a thing. I don't know, if for some reason I just thought that, but they were like as big as trees, like these giant women who were like almost like they were just like these electric green silhouette of like an idealized woman shape, and they were real beautiful, and they would like peek over trees and like look at me, and the whole forest was like singing this song, or they were all like in unison in terms of they had like some sort of uh, unity music going on. I don't know how to explain it, but I was just like, I felt like I was in their space, in their dimension, going like, looking around, going like, it was super cool. But I didn't understand what they were saying to me. There was no telepathy. It wasn't like, where like whatever they could say, I understood. I mean, they did lead me to my tent. Like I knew they wanted me to go be alone in my tent because they were using hand motions like I was a baby, and like having me follow them as they were flying in front of my face and stuff. And then I went and had an ego death. That's what happened with that. But so yeah, I mean, like, I don't know, I never believed in fairies until a year and a half ago, and then now I'm like, oh yeah, I don't think I could have I mean, obviously, I don't know. That's the other thing. Like, I just really don't think that I could have imagined that.
Yeah, right. Well, like your subconscious at that level, or like it was just going in that direction. It's interesting that it would have chosen there if it wasn't real, you know?
Yeah. I mean, and I guess it's like, and a lot of people argue like, well, of course, like you have the context of what a fairy is, and you know, you don't know what your brain is capable of doing or whatever. So yeah, of course you could have imagined that. Right. And yeah, I'm sure, but my feeling, whatever that is,
totally agree.
Is that I think they are on another dimension, but that they live here.
Exactly. Like it's like a layover, like a I don't know, just
like some parallel, kind of like there's some sort of veil, like we're on the same planet, but in a different timeline or a different, like, I don't know what you call that, but vibration. Yeah, whatever. Or if this is a video game, like we're in level 1 and they're in level 2, or vice versa, or I don't really know, but it's something that's overlaid.
That's what I think too. Right. Yeah, there's different vibrations. I think that you just tapped into that vibrational level, like you said, and we're able to see it under the influence of medicinal mushrooms. You know, that's what they're there for, to open up your brain in that sense, and to have different kind of connections. Some sort of. That's what I think. Yeah. Cool.
I know that.
Well, I had an experience, but yeah. So I live in Oaxaca, Mexico, and there are a lot of stories about fairies and elves, and people that are from here will say that their grandparents all have stories from the mountains, and they live in a mountain. The fairies and elves live in this mountainous area just north of Oaxaca, like of the valley of Oaxaca, where this capital is. So the stories that they told, they're like, well, it seems like there's a leprechaun, and they play jokes. And I was like, wow, it's interesting that they have the same kind of history as what you hear about Ireland and the leprechauns. And I don't know how much truth there is to that, or how much, I don't know, like history there is, but it's a lot of the same type of thing, like that, like leprechauns play jokes and they do funny things to you. So one weekend I went, it was my first weekend that I ever left my son for the weekend. He was like 3 years old, and I was like, I'm leaving him. I'm going to this women's retreat up in the mountains. But I really just wanted to reconnect with myself, reconnect with nature and other women. So I went up there, and I arrived, and I had thought about these stories. So I get to the place, and the name of the restaurant in the place is called Los Duendes, which is like leprechaun or elf. So I was like, wow, that's interesting. I didn't really think anything of it. But then a little while later, when they were telling us the rules of what we're supposed to do, what we're not supposed to do, the woman in charge was like, don't leave any food out. And then the people who were directing it look at each other. So I assumed it was for animals, which it may have been. But they were like, no, don't leave any food outside. Just make sure if you have any snacks that they're well, guarded inside your cabin. So I was like, all right, whatever. And so then that night there was like this crazy, it was raining. It was raining in the middle of the night. I don't even know what time it was, probably like 2:00 in the morning. I was sharing a cabin with other women I didn't know. And I hear this like conversation happening outside. And so it woke me up, and I was like, well, that's weird. Like the people who work here must be getting people to their cabin, but in the middle of the night, and we're way up in the mountains. It just seemed like a weird thing that people would be arriving in the middle of the night in the rain and stuff. But I was like, plus it doesn't even sound like Spanish and indigenous language. It was like, I have no idea what they're saying. And it was at a different tone that you would never hear. It was like, yeah. And there was one noise all the way down, like seemingly downhill, and then one behind my cabin, like uphill. And so there was this conversation happening. And then all of a sudden I hear this big thunk on the door. And I was like, what was that? And I got freaked out, right? So then I didn't think anything of it. And so then the next morning at breakfast, somebody's like, did you guys hear the leprechaun last night? Did you hear the duendes? And so I was like, whoa, wait, other people heard this? I didn't know what that was, but that makes sense to me. So then we started getting into the conversation, and they were like, well, yeah, that's why they told people not to leave out food, because actually the elves like sweet food, and so they'll come and like take the candy and whatever, or they'll think that you left it for them. So, and they play jokes, like they'll play practical jokes. So they may take stuff and like leave other stuff. So I was like, wow, that's really cool. So then later on that day, we went for a walk, and we're finding 4-leaf clovers everywhere. I mean, 4-leaf clovers, not even just one. They were in entire fields of 4-leaf clovers. It was the weirdest thing. So I was
right,
like,
which are supposed to be a genetic anomaly that technically only happens like once in a million clovers, right? Like that's why they're
yeah. I suppose so. And plus they're associated with like the leprechauns and elves and stuff.
Yeah.
So I was like, what is that about? You know, because there's that like the same history of Ireland and like the 4-leaf clovers, or at least that's the American story version that happened in Ireland. I don't know if that did or not. So, okay, fine. Now it's getting to be dusk and we're eating dinner, and someone's like, did you guys see the fairies? And I'm like, wait a minute, what? Like this was a yoga retreat women's weekend. Nobody was doing any drug. There was no alcohol. It was pretty much, that was it. People were doing Kundalini yoga and meditating and retreating. So I was like, wait, did you just say fairies? What do you mean fairies? So she's like, no, if you go outside right now, you can see them. I was like, I got to go see some fairies, you know? So yeah. I go out, and I can't even describe what it was like. It was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, like in the moment, because I was like, what is this? So it was dusk, and there was just a little bit of light shining from cabins or like the restaurant. And so anything that reflected, there were water drops because it had rained, and there were just like water drops all over the plants. And inside each droplet of water, like you would see a little sparkling light, like an iridescent light, like pink and green and blue. And I was like, what is this? So I would just try to look at it, because I was like, is this like a lightning bug? Maybe it's a lightning bug. But I could never see anything except for this little light appear. And so I was like, I'm just going to focus on one little light to see if it's going to, like, what it's going to do, you know? So I would look at the little light, and it would go up and out at like on and off, but then it would change colors. It wouldn't stay the same color. So it would change from like blue to yellow, and then like to pink.
Oh, so they weren't stuck in one.
No.
That's awesome.
It was so weird. And so then some of the women were like, you know, if you talk to them or if you sing to them, they'll get brighter. So everyone was just like, oh, we love you, fairies. Like, shine for us brighter, you know? And so, I mean, who knows if it did? Yeah, exactly. And so I was like, I so wanted to take a picture, and everyone was like, no pictures. It's going to scare them. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I understand, because of the light. Like, it was probably too bright of a light. So I didn't take any pictures. I could only say for doubters that, okay, well, there was some kind of weird lightning bug that changes colors. And it was the smallest bug I've ever seen, because it was just like a tiny, tiny drop of light. And they changed colors, like from blue to pink so it just kept changing. I don't know what to say about that, but I was like, wow, it was just an incredible place. And my other friends have told stories. There's plenty of stories going around Oaxaca about elves and stuff, but I have friends that swear up and down that their grandparents have had stories and have gotten healed, or children have gotten let off, and then they were like, where were you? Oh, I was playing with the other, like that little man.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I have a good friend in Scotland, and I used to live with these Irish guys when I lived in London, and like they kind of have like some bad fairies. Like they don't necessarily always associate them with like good. I mean, and sometimes I don't even think that they're like tiny for them. Like they can be, I don't know. They act like at some point. I mean, there's folklore of them stealing children and are trading out children, and
yes,
like just some weird. They have a lot of really bizarre folklore in like the Celtic traditions. And actually, leprechauns are not necessarily like just tricksters. They're also kind of jerks. Like they're not
right, exactly. Yeah, they're not like nice necessarily. Yeah, I suppose there's like, maybe there's different types or
for
personalities.
Sure. I mean, even on my one little trip, I saw like 18 different sizes and different species.
That's crazy.
Like, I don't know that they were, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
But what I thought was weird is I actually listened to this podcast about fairies recently, and it was not good. But it was like, the guy was saying something. Well, though I'm definitely not going to tell you which podcast it was, since I just said it's not good. But anyway, the dude was super boring. That's why it wasn't good. Anyway, he was saying that it's like 95% of the seers that said that they've seen are women, and mainly the young women, young girls claim that they see it a lot. And then also like fairies predominantly seem to be female fairies. So
right.
That's kind of interesting. I know my mom claims that about, I don't know, 5 to 8, 10 years ago, we're in Dallas, and she was like in the morning drinking coffee outside on her patio in the spring. And she said that just clear as day, like this little like green, it wasn't neon green. She said it like was wearing a leaf dress, almost like something Tikal, but she said even her legs and her skin and her face, she said like everything about her was like olive green. And she said she was about as big as like a bumblebee. She flew up right by my mom, and then, like looked at my mom for a second. My mom was like, what the heck? And then just flew off. And my mom was like, I think I saw a fairy. Like, I don't know if that's true or not, but I think I saw a fairy. But
wow.
I have another friend who claims that she was in the hot tub, and that she was that she sort of saw like kind of like snowflakes that were kind of tumbling at the edge of the hot tub rim or something. And she like looked a little closer, and she said it was actually little fairies like dressed in all icicles and stuff like on the rim. And she's like, she didn't even know what to do. She just sat and watched them. So it's weird, and like people are kind of like, if I can't say that, I can't tell anybody that, because it's
right.
like, am I crazy or what?
Right. Well, my mom's friend has a picture. She sent it to me. I should post it at the end of this video. That there's a picture. She took the picture of the flower, but then what appeared was a fairy in the flower. So you can see it. I mean, people will argue and be like, that's not a fairy, but you'll see it and you'll be like, wow. So
yeah, there's, I mean, I've also, I don't know, I've watched some other thing, like, after my thing, I was like looking up all these, like, do adult people, human beings, see fairies? Is this like a thing? And apparently in the spiritual community, it's like a thing. It's like,
yes,
people have like,
there are people really into in the fairy gardens, and people put them and make fairy gardens specifically for fairies. I mean, some people just make them because they're adorable and beautiful, like
right.
part of your garden, but like other people make them for fairies, like inviting them.
I just like, if we take away whether they do exist or don't exist, or if the folklore has any substance or whatever, like I just kind of wonder, like what is that? What is that there's things that we can't see all the time, but that there's a veil that thins between our worlds or collides in our worlds? Is that some sort of space-time continuum, or is it like they particularly have powers where they can decide if you can see them or not? Or is that like,
I think it's a vibrational thing also, because if they're able to come into our
field.
Our field, exactly, then we're able to see them. And the other thing is, we don't really process, our eyes don't process at the speed of other animals or other types of, I don't know, well, I guess animals more than anything. We're not able to see what other people can see, or what other.
Yeah, I mean, that's even true with like our spectrum of light, I mean, like,
yeah, exactly.
Two of my nephews are like red green colorblind, and they can't, I mean, it's weird because I saw like the color wheel of what they can see the other day, and I was just like, oh wow, like, so that's what 2 cones in your eyes does versus 3. I mean, so
yeah, really changes things. Yeah, so that's part of it, like how much you're actually getting, and then how much you're able to process at a time. Anyway, yeah, and if you were to slow down or speed up things, you would be able to see different things. So if you're able to see like a time lapse in a video, right? So if you see something that's happening really fast, you can see it growing, like let's say a seed grow into a plant, right? But you can also see other things that are happening that you wouldn't be able to see in the moment. So
That's actually a really good point. And that there's, okay, so that's like your frame rate, right? So there's
Right.
a part in your brain that, you know, ours is apparently 24 frames per second is about what the human brain processes. That's why you're, you know, whatever. And that's why when you do 36 frames per second, it appears to be 3D. Like that's, you know, the 3D movies or whatever, or high definition. It's because it's more imagery than the brain can process. So it like hyperpigments everything for us.
Yes.
Well, I was reading some study about how they think like frame rate, or maybe okay, basically I don't know what I read or what, but what I decided was that there was this dude I was talking at who works at Google, and he was saying that like if frame rates are different, like let's say there was an alien that had a frame rate that was like, I don't know, like 1,000,000 frames per second, or like 1 frame per second, like it saying hello could be so fast you would never catch it, or so slow that it would take a millennial to be like hello, like, and we would never be able to perceive, you know, because our time,
like the full picture.
And our time things aren't on the same work. But also I was thinking that like, well, they say a lot of meditators perhaps can like kind of slow down the aging process, and it's because they can slow their frame rate, is what one theory is. So like, let's say the reason maybe like these tortoises are living 150 years and they move like it's because maybe we should study like how like time is perceived within the brain in terms of frame rates, because maybe tortoises really are only getting like 15 frames per second, whereas like a bumblebee is getting like and it dies in 3 days, like, or you know, or like a dog that, you know, like one of our years is 7 of its years, like maybe it really is like at 100 frame rates per second or something, and that's why they're all hyper and this and that, and they burn out.
Yeah, they perceive it differently.
So
they perceive time differently.
And I think perception of time might have something to do with the rate at which your telomeres like, or your cells divide, and thereby your life expectancy, you know, happens. I don't know. That's just that would be an interesting angle, I think, to be studied.
Yeah, and it would be interesting to see a study on that for sure. It would take, I wonder if there's even ways to study it, like the instruments to actually do the studying, but who knows. When you were talking about like the speeding up or slowing down the frames, maybe if you were able to do that, you would have been able to understand the fairies. You know, maybe it was like they were speaking a different language, perhaps. But in addition to that, if they were speaking super fast, if that could have been recorded and slowed down, then maybe we would be able to like get the message somehow. Because it wasn't you weren't able to pick it up telepathically.
No. Okay, hold on. We can pause this on the thing, but like I'm gonna go get my other phone and just play you. I'm gonna play it on here, but we'll leave it running. But hold on, I know where my other phone is. I'll be right back. One second. Okay, I'm back. All right, so sorry, my hair's all. Okay, so this one is called Shroom Trip. That's let's see here.
Good label.
Good label.
Okay, so I heard singing. I still hear buzzing in my ear, but it would be like.
I can't sing.
That's what it sounded like.
Okay, but cool. I mean, that's just their little melody they were singing, but they were all singing it in like rounds and stuff. But then I have notes on like, some of the, I ended up writing down I wrote a bunch of notes afterwards, but they had I remember there was like a lot of ba and ma sounds, like
sounds.
Yeah, like they had different I mean, it was
like syllables or something.
Well,
when you were
I said I heard a lot of words like shuka, sheka, my, bly, and ma. Like they incorporated those sounds in their language a lot. So
cool. That's great that you have that recorded.
Like as soon as it was done, I was like,
Maria, I'm glad that you were able to do that. Maria Sabina is a medicine woman from Oaxaca, and she lived, I don't know when she died, maybe in the 1980s. I'm not exactly sure, but she, as a child, went into the forest with her sister, and they ate medicinal mushrooms without really knowing. And since then she was able to, she became a medicine woman and grew up and was able to cure people of a lot of their ailments. But she has recorded a song. So anytime people would come to see her, she would sing them the song that she got through the mushroom. So maybe it's the mushroom that's also giving you the song. Who knows? But or it's that field, because she lived in the mountains, and who knows about the fairy realm there. But it just made me think of that when you said about the song. And so she would sing, and there's recordings of her singing after she's done the medicine ceremony, and like offering their song to the people that come to see her.
Yeah, so that's kind of weird, because I didn't know that, and I also got a little song. It was
cool. Exactly. And so she would be like, "This is your song. Like, this is the song that they're telling me to like give you. Like, this is the offering."
Huh. So
that's your song.
I guess that's my
song.
Your song. Yeah, I got my favorite. The fairies were singing me a song there. Yeah, and the one thing I do think is a little cool and bizarre and something to take note of is that and I guess this is a theme sort of that I always have to play around with in life, but is that like we as human beings act as parasites, like meaning we act like we're allergic to the planet, like we're in our little rooms, like just with our stuff that looks like this, and just everything about our life is just like, don't touch that plant, do not, they have mud on me, oh my god, this is dirty, there's germ, like we're allergic to the place that we live on and that we're born on. Everything has to be only 72 degrees temperature, everything has to be just right for us to like be okay. And I don't know if it's mainly like, I mean, maybe I watched what is that, Avatar or something too much, or Ferngully or whatever, but I just think like the thing I got from the fairies is that they are symbiosis with their environment.
Their environment, totally.
Like you can tell they're obviously intelligent beings if they're real, whatever. I mean, like they're communicating with each other. They have emotions. They're intelligent. They're talking with each other. They have like structures. They don't have giant buildings or whatever. They live within the trees or whatever, but they don't hurt whatever they're living on. And they don't try to change it. They live within it. And
they totally live within it.
We're like the only animal on the planet that doesn't do that. And it's so weird. And that kind of in itself makes me think we're not even native, or there's something like why do we do that? What is wrong with us?
I don't know either. I always think that. I'm like, we built these huge buildings, and like, I mean, I guess, maybe it's just part of the experiment, the human experiment, and making progress, so to speak. But I don't know why we can't just live with the environment. It's like we can totally live like lives that are filled with everything that we need from planet Earth. There's nothing else that we need to create, but yet we still like you said, box ourselves in this area. And even like the technology that we're using, I mean, at this point, we need it, but like, I don't know, we could be communicating telepathically at this point.
Yeah, I mean, like, it feels to me like, the stories that people have of other alien, I mean, even my own little light being people or what, like they're speaking telepathically. I don't know if those things are, I don't know what those are, if they're figments of my imagination, or if they're actually like aliens from another space, or if they're dimensional beings, or if they're some government that I don't know what they are. I'm not even pretending to know what they are. But whatever they are, they're more intelligent than I am, and so that's the thing that's confusing to me, is like, why, like, we really do. If you look at what a parasite does, a parasite gets onto its host and it sucks it dry until it kills it. And I feel like we're parasites upon Gaia. Like we're sucking her dry, and we kill everything else in our path. It's like we encroach on every other species territory. And like I talked to this lady yesterday who like grows like a little tiny peach orchard or something, and she was saying that, oh well, but we're not organic. And I'm like, okay, that's fine, like I don't really know or care. And then she was like, well, I mean, because the bugs are just so horrible, they'll just eat everything, you'll get nothing out of it. You just you have to use the pesticides for the bugs. And then also the squirrels will just take a peach, they'll take a nibble out of it, and then they want a new peach. They don't want to eat the whole peach, they just want the very first bite of peach. And like, so she went on and on about the thing.
You can't just leave them a bowl of peaches and be like, all right, here's your share.
I know, but and I'm just thinking, well, I don't know, I mean, but we have to commercialize everything,
right. Yeah, well, plus we've gotten so out of control, just like a parasite has with our population. I mean, it's just crazy. I'm not into the population control theory, but really, like, let's look at what we're doing. We just have longer life expectancies, and we just keep going and going, and like, I have no idea. I don't know.
Yeah. And it's weird, like I'm 36 and childless, and it's like I get a lot of societal pressure, like, time's a ticking. And it's like, guess what? You know what? Like, if I don't have kids, that's actually an option. That's okay too, by the way.
Exactly.
If I have them, cool. But if I don't judge me on that. Like that's cool.
Yeah. Exactly.
But a lot of people don't think like that.
No, I know. I've worked with them I know. People should just let people live.
Live and let live, guys.
Yeah, but anyway, this, like, with us not being able to, like, I don't know, live with our environment, we're really a pretty shitty species that compared to the rest. It's like, I saw this, they just found this 400-year-old, I think it's been found for a while actually, 400-year-old shark, the longest vertebrae that they've ever seen. And there's this guy, like, swimming with this shark that's 400 years old. I'm like, man, that shark has so much information, has lived for 400 years. Or trees that have been around. There's a tree here in Oaxaca that's about 2,000 years old, and people come to visit it. And I'm like, man, this tree has seen so much and knows so much. Like, it's just incredible.
Yeah, like all of our recorded history.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Well, and then the other thing is, I sometimes wonder, it's like, we pride ourselves on being intelligent, and you're kind of like, to what end though? And like, to where does that go? And like, what value does that hold in terms of, if we were hunter-gatherer people or whatever, who knows what we really were or weren't for like the last 150,000 years. And like if we keep on going at the rate we've been going the last 120 years, we don't have another 150,000 years.
Nope.
Like, just things like plastics, like, don't get me started on plastics, but it's just, I mean, what are you doing? You live in this contained space, and right. There's no such thing as trash in their backyard, because you have a limited amount of space that you live on. So I don't know. Anyway, like, I guess like how we got in that tangent is just that when I was in the fairy land or the fairy world, like they really live like the movie Avatar or any fairy movie you see, where it's right. Like any Tinkerbell movie or whatever. Like, I think like they don't have like they don't have cars and airplanes. Like, they can fly and they can do what they want to do. And I don't really know how their system works, but they're living within their means.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just an experiment with humans. Well, with anything, I guess, but we're like, okay, let's see what this will do. And we're not really a great species. I mean, I think that we've done more harm than good, really, to this planet. Have we advanced? I'm not really sure. I don't know. Have we? I guess maybe we'll one day wake up and be like, yeah, I guess let's look back at what we've done.
Yeah, we're good little consumers of things that...
We're good consumers, and we're good at war. We've been doing that for the last 9,000 years. Like, I mean...
Yeah.
We just keep doing the same thing over and over again. What else are we doing? But I do think that's changing. I think that we're at the new change.
Yeah,
because,
for sure.
Like, Yeah, it's with 2012. I'm not going to say I'm anywhere near an expert, but okay. So 2012 was the end of that. The Mayan calendar, if you want to say, was the end, or like the end of the cycle. But at the same time, like astronomically, they knew that all of the planets were aligned. Like there was actually an alignment that was happening. So a lot of people were like, oh, like world's going to end, or like what's going to happen. And so the idea was that from a little bit of what I've read, there's like, okay, that was when a lot of the start of like the light from the center of the universe opened up during that alignment. And so in these years, we were in 2019, they're catching up to us. So this enlightenment is actually happening after the fact. So I do think it's going back in that direction, because we can't stay in the patriarch. We can't stay forever in this darkness. It's pretty much been like we've been living in the dark ages for how long? Yeah, maybe we've had some renaissance throughout, but for the overall, what's been happening, I think that the pendulum is going back.
Yeah, I mean, and I feel that's true, and I hope that's true. And I mean, I know for me, like 2012 was a big year. Like I, I was definitely a in tune, spiritually awake kid. And then I would say like society beat it out of me by adolescence. And then, in my 20s, I was definitely like a big, like, I was a good little consumer. I'll tell you that. I was a good little consumer trying to live the American dream. And then I don't know, like in 2012, that's the year I turned 30. And I started, okay, people are going to so think I'm so crazy, but like I actually would hear the word starseed in my head, like, you're a starseed, you're a starseed. And I heard it over and over again in the summer of 2012. And I was like, what does that mean? And I would Google it, and there was nothing about it. I found one time I found a test, and it was like, oh, test to see if you're a starseed. And I was like, okay, let's test to see if I was a starseed. I didn't know anything like about Dolores Cannon or whoever, like that lavender. I don't know. I don't know any of these people who talk about starseed stuff. I still don't even really know what that means. All I know is that like somebody didn't tell me I was one. Like I heard I was one in my head. And it was in 2012. And my life has changed in 2012 in terms of like my mom had a big UFO sighting then, and she's, was kind of freaking out about it. And so I started researching UFOs for her and like trying to find the things she saw and actually I'll get her on here at some point and have her like explain what she saw, and we can tell that whole story. But so I started doing UFO research in 2012, and then in 2013 I actually I saw some UFOs, and then it just was like that. But that year was the year my spiritual awakening started, I guess you would say. And I think a lot of people I've talked to have a similar experience in terms of like that's when they started questioning things.
Yeah, I think it could happen at different, obviously it happens at different times for different people. There's a lot of things happening also astrologically, like for your own sign, your age, and there's so many things happening, but It makes sense that things turned that year. But yeah, for me, I started getting into crop circles again. I also had like a kind of a spiritual childhood, I want to say, but then I kind of, then adolescence hit and you just go in other directions. And then, but it's always been there. It's always been there. I've never felt like that far away from it. Yeah. But then I started reading more about like, crop circles. And I've always been interested in UFOs or like conspiracy things like Bigfoot or whatever, really just like things that I find interesting that I'm like, what is this? This isn't normal. But anyway, yeah, I think it's kind of like the veil, as they say, you can hear that all the time, but the veil is really getting thinner, and it's starting to, I think we're able to like, to have bigger potential than what we did before because of just the timing.
Yeah. And I mean,
yeah. Sorry.
But I definitely think like, more people like are doing what we're doing right now. More people are being open about it than ever have been, which is cool.
Yes, exactly. Right.
And let's talk about the crop circles, because like we actually like, yeah, we met at a dome building workshop last year in Oaxaca, or well, in Monzunte, Mexico. And we were building these aircrete domes. And anyway, like there's a bunch of people there and you're just like, whatever. But was I talking about crop circles, or were you talking about crop circles?
No, you were saying something about crop circles, and I was like, "Did you say crop circles?"
And I
jumped
like,
right. I was like,
"Yeah,
oh,
I did."
Somebody's talking about crop circles.
Oh, you're into crop circles. Okay. And I, I saw the movie Signs with, M. Night Shyamalan's Signs or whatever. And
movie.
Yeah. Well, but the thing is that like, I think I don't remember when that movie came out, probably 2009. Anyway, then I was kind of like, well, how many crop circles are there really? And then I started researching, like, they're a real thing that happens every year. And
yeah,
you can't make them as precise as they make them.
I feel like to even argue whether they're real or not is just annoying. But you're right. Yeah, there's some people that have gotten better at it and whatever. But it's like, let's just forget about that. You sent that 3D video or article the other day and I had a book on crop circles. I'd also be like, crop circles to my friends every day. And they'd be like, oh yeah, tell us what chapter you've read in your crop circle book. And I'd be like, no, crop circles are crazy. They're just, everybody needs to know about them, because everybody needs to know about them for real. There are messages in fields, and they're making these 3-dimensional figures that just are mind-boggling, really. And they're helping to bring us to the next level, because they're helping, I think they're just helping us evolve intellectually or mentally at some level, because in order to figure out some of those mathematical formulas or the communication patterns or whatever it is that they say the message is, besides the pattern and the beauty itself, is like that's helping us. It's speeding us along.
Well, okay. And so if you have never ever looked into crop circles at all, like the main majority of them occur in a particular ley line area within like the southern part of the UK.
Yay, going soon.
Yeah. And the Glastonbury type region in the south. And they have records of them appearing within 20 minutes. Then there are a lot of reports of lights show up, and then they're there. There's people who take, you can look online, there's all kinds of stuff on it. There's people who take those
infrared cameras.
Well, not the things that read the energy levels, like you could have it in meters. The corn right outside the circle, corn right inside the circle, or the crop, whatever the crop is. And it's like there is like an energy within the crops.
Right, exactly.
And
also the crop itself, when it's bent, it shows that there's some kind of like radiation change to it, or there's some kind of change to the actual element of the crop.
And if it's a real crop circle, it doesn't actually harm the crop. It doesn't kill it.
Right.
It's
right.
It's like it folds it and it bends it,
yes.
and sometimes it even ties it in knots and weird stuff like that.
Yes.
But it does not like if a dude with a plank and a board and his and like a drinking buddy went out there at 2 a.m. and stomped on it, it's like bent. It's not as elegant as the ones that for me resonate as real.
Right. Yeah, no, they're amazing. Crop circles are pretty cool. And also their equipment goes out when they're in the fields, like their filming equipment or electronic devices fail in it. People have had physical reactions in it too within the circles. So yeah, there's no question that they're real for me. And plus they've been recorded historically,
the first one appeared
several hundred years.
I think it was like 1837 or 1836. I know this because I play this timeline board game, and it's like, anyway, or the first recorded one is, and they've gotten more and more sophisticated as time's gone on, which I feel like is a lot of what we're able to handle. And then, a lot of
right, and they may be evolving creatures also, whoever makes them, and so maybe they're evolving.
It's fairies. Who knows? I don't know. It could be fairies. The fairy crop. But I would be really interested to. We have to go someday. We have to go to when crop circle season's coming up, which is usually the summer.
Usually the summer.
yeah, we got to go see them.
I just saw some snow circles recently, but I didn't want to like even mention them because I'm not sure how real those are.
I have
And
seen the
people were
ice
talking,
circles
yeah.
and like the tundra and stuff. I think like some of those look pretty real because like, dude, you like I saw a couple on some lake in Serbia or something, but or there was also some snow ones somewhere in real far North Canada that like you cannot see any other footprints anywhere that like
Well, people were saying other drones or whatever, but who knows?
I don't know. Yeah, see that is also the thing is like yeah, we have a lot of technology. We have a lot of video technology. That's why it's like you can have the best footage of a UFO ever in the history of the world, like, besides one that's moving up and down like this. And people would still go like, oh, it's photoshopped. It's whatever. I mean,
Right.
I don't
Exactly.
know.
Exactly. Well, the one that I was talking about, I didn't realize that there were like ice ones that are in the tundra as well. Now, this one was more like, it was recent. It was a snow one, and I wasn't sure if it was real. Like it wasn't, I don't know. It seemed like it was an owl, actually. It was a really cool design of an owl. So either way, if somebody did it, it was awesome. But I thought, well, who knows what this is? Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know. I have like, I can hear stones. Which so that's why I really would like be curious if I can hear anything whenever I go to a crop circle or not. But so for instance, the very first time I went to Stonehenge, I was like 23, totally was like repressing my woo woo. That kind of sounds bad, but like the but you're no, but like I wasn't into any of this stuff, and I get there and I was like, you hear that? It's like whistle, like what is that hum? Like what is going on? And the stones actually have like a hum, like an electricity hum to them, as if like it's like 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 this giant, really loud, big hum, and it's actually coming from the rocks. And so I've experienced that at Sacsayhuaman in Peru. I've experienced that. Well, there's a lot of places in Peru that have a lot of noise in their megalithic stones and stuff. Tikal had it in Guatemala. What are those pyramids in Oaxaca?
That's Monte Albán, but you were there. You went there. That's right, Monte Albán.
And they have a noise. Like some of them are buzzing, and then or for me. And then like in India, like there was a place I went to called Mahabalipurum, and they're these like unknown megalithic stones that I've never heard anybody ever talk about, and I can't find any information about them online. But those things are crazy loud, and and then the other thing that. Well, Chaco Canyon is super loud for me as well, and in New Mexico. And there's some like when I was in, I think I showed you those pictures. Remember when I was in the Arches National Park in Arizona or in Utah this summer? I was like going to the Delicate Arch, which is this famous, like, pretty arch, whatever. I just got done hiking that. And then like I heard like this buzzing noise, and it was kind of like off the path. It wasn't where I was supposed to be walking. And I was like, ugh, what is that? And so I walked over to, actually, I'll just put it in the video. I'll show the like what actual petroglyph I found. But there was this petroglyph that like basically called me to it. It was like buzzing so loud, and I looked at it, and it was like like I couldn't it was super, super loud. So it's weird. And so
were you by yourself or like with somebody and they didn't hear it at all?
Yeah, I was with my friend Becky, and she didn't hear it at all. She was just like, I was like that thing's making noise, and she was like, no, it's not. But okay. Yeah. So I don't know, like I guess I can hear rocks. So there you go.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, well, people are sensitive to different things. I don't doubt it. Hey, if you feel like it's buzzing in your ear. It's interesting that you went to all these different places and it happened.
Well,
Yeah.
and I mean, I'm going to be going to Egypt in October, and like my working theory, which I don't even know is mine or whatever, like I actually think like maybe some of these megalithic stones and some of these structures and all, maybe even these petroglyphs and stuff, I think they might have actually been like power plants.
Yeah. Well, that makes
portals or something.
Yeah.
Like I still think there's some sort of resonant energy that is like as if they were machines that are still literally turned
operable.
on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Operable. Yeah.
Huh.
Maybe
well,
they
that
are
makes
too,
sense.
maybe they're not. I don't know, but I that's sort of like how I've been justifying it in my head.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that to me makes complete sense. You know, I don't know what they would be exactly generating, maybe like crafts coming and going, or maybe portals to other dimension, or who knows. But I don't doubt that. I mean, there's so much unexplainable stuff, and it just drives me crazy that people are like, no, it can't be. I'm like, what? Because you didn't see it, it didn't exist? I don't understand. That doesn't, you know, or you didn't hear it, that means that somebody else didn't hear it, or did hear it, or like why does it, just because you don't have the capacity doesn't mean that somebody else can't?
Yeah, I think, I mean, like I know like a big, like of, I mean, I've read a lot of like the atheist books, like Richard Dawkins and, you know, Sam Harris and like, what's Christopher Hitchens. I've read a bunch of their stuff. I was into that for a couple of years. And like their biggest argument is kind of basically like, you know, the scientific method is like, if it's not repeatable, it's not measurable. Like, you know, if it's not a consistent, like a one-off apparition of a ghost or something has zero validity because they'll chalk it up to, oh, that the psychology of that person is somehow messed up.
Well, I understand that too. I can get that, but at the same time, but like maybe
there's way too many cases of it. And
that's definitely true.
And what do you do if you're the person who's had the experience? Like, how do you justify that to yourself? It's like, yeah, exactly. I would love to go around being like, no, none of that is possible. What is possible is what you see and only what you see. It's like, well, I see some messed up stuff. So
exactly. And it bothers me that scientific method, because I do believe in a scientific method, I think, of course, but they make it sound like that's the only method that's actually put to the test, as if that scientific method should not be evolved in itself. So is that the only standard of method? That's the only framework that we have to go with in order to test your theory? That's the one we're using and saying, yes, that one's it forever.
Right. Even when we know that like there's spectrums, we have a very, very narrow vision of the you know, the visible spectrum is very, very, very low compared to, I mean, plus this,
we were just talking about that.
I hate when they're always saying things like, well, you know, the universe is composed of you know, whatever, 95% dark matter. You're like, what is dark matter? You know, like, well, it's the ether is no longer a scientific thing. Ether was something that we looked at in the 1930s, and then we have decided that it is just space. Space is space-time, which is just black and void of anything. It is nothingness. And you're like, right. I don't. Is that true? Do you know that that's true? I mean, like everything is just.
But also, yeah, it's like, come on, So we're only up to 2019. That's it.
Well, and it's kind of like, and we don't know anything. And, you know, it's like me and my sister were talking about this today because, you know, she's a doctor, and I was talking about, you know, the geology, like now they're like, oh, dinosaurs have feathers. So here we are, Jurassic Park, making them these giant, you know, reptiles all the time. And then it's kind of like, oh, well, actually, maybe not so much anymore. We don't really know what all the story we come up with. Exactly. Like we find a little statue with big boobs on it, and we're like, that's fertility. Yep, that's what that is. That they did a bunch of fertility rituals. That was everything's about fertility for them. Or sacrifice. These were all sacrifices, a lot of sacrificing and fertility. It's like, okay, dudes, like you have no idea. You have like a tiny little statue that could be anything. And
that may have come later, but what was before the original purpose? Like even the pyramids in Egypt. I mean, come on. So we're going with the story. Right, exactly. That's exactly the point. Like that That was it. That was it. Let's use the pharaohs. The pharaohs were, that's where they were buried, and that was the reason why they were put up. And they don't have the time off at all.
Right.
And they've done their carbon studies, and that's what it is. That's when it's been created. But they have that all wrong as well.
They built these giant tombs that took longer than their lifespan to build. No.
Right. No.
Yeah, and that's,
very
like part of
theories.
They really are, and it's weird and sad that we're still buying them at this point. I mean, I'm actually not, like, I listen to this podcast all the time called Earth Ancients. It's like one of my favorite podcasts, and I'm actually going on their tour to Egypt in October, and it's all about, like, this guy Muhammad Ibrahim is like a big researcher there, and he talks about, like, there's actual tool markings, like power tool markings, and like he'll take us to see that, and like they're going like, hey, you guys, like, they either had a way of moving stones with frequency or pouring stone, like as like liquefying it and pouring it or whatever, but they were not like moved on the backs of slave labor, like,
no, definitely not. Coming from just thousands of miles away, or God only knows,
right, of quarries that we don't even know where they exist. It's just
exactly,
it's gonna like no,
yeah,
we don't know what exactly happened,
right?
But what didn't happen is pharaohs with whips, like being like, build me this mountain for my 13-year-old son that died,
right?
Come in, and I mean, that's just not how it is.
Right, exactly. Yeah, there are a lot of uncovered pyramids around the world. Or
I really want to go to the Bosnian one. There's have you seen anything about that?
Yeah. I've only heard that there are, I don't know, more than one. No.
I mean, like there's one in I can't remember the name of the town, but it's like a mountain. It's like the biggest pyramid in the world. I mean, and they like a lot of people, there's an argument whether or not people, sometimes they're going like, oh, it's a man-made, but it's clearly a pyramid when you look at it. I think that one's like super new, like it's only, or not new obviously, but I mean, it's super new that they're studying it right now. I mean,
and there's some in China. Maybe that was the one where I thought that there was more than one.
Oh, there are a lot in China, and even where the terracotta warriors are built, that's only like 10% of that is actually dug up, and they have a mercury river that they can see by LiDAR above. Like
they found that in Mexico City also.
A mercury river?
A mercury deposit underneath, I think it's the Pyramid of the Sun outside of Mexico City, but they found mercury under the pyramid.
That's super, super cool. I mean, because they're finding a lot out with they did the LiDAR on the whole Guatemalan and the Yucatan Peninsula area. And there's over 60,000 structures that are like undug right now. And they're looking at, I mean, like archaeology is just like booming with awesome new information. And it's just like blowing our minds. Like the place I said in the magnet thing, that Gobeli Tepe is in Turkey, and it's the oldest known ruins that we currently have, and they know that it's for sure like 13,000 years old at least, and yet it has a lot of things that can mimic that show maybe some relation to the Egyptian pyramids, and they think that may mean that the Egyptian pyramids are a lot older than we think. And then it was intentionally buried with pebbles, so it was buried when it was in its heyday. So they don't know why.
Huh.
Yeah. So Gobeli Tepe, definitely look up stuff about that. It's super cool. And I'll put a picture of that in a minute.
There's in Chiapas in southern Mexico, Palenque, and Palenque is a pyramid which I've never been to, but I would like to go to. And Chitcha also is in southern Mexico that I have been to, but apparently there's another one that's in the same area that has not been covered, that's just as big or bigger. And when I visited Belize, they were just uncovering some pyramids. We went to go visit some ruins, and they were huge, like, yes, that's definitely a pyramid, or at least some kind of ruin under that. And they were just like globs of hills. And you were like, oh yeah, that's a pyramid. that's completely overtaken by the by the jungle, you know. Well, there's this when I was like looking into the Mayan calendar for a while back, and I haven't like reread a lot of the information recently, but I remember that like if we're looking at the history of the world, of the universe, I'm not exactly sure, but let's say when we take things like from the beginning of creation, let's say, then everything, like let's say cell life lasted, I don't remember how many millions of years, but like let's say that was the first life, right? But all that information that was gathered went to the next level, and so at each level was shorter and faster than the level before, than the time age before, because all the information that was compiled, it was like evolution, like didn't need to be relearned. So everything that was learned during the previous time period, like the next time period already knew it. So like when you got around to building tools, like using tools in human history, they already knew how to communicate. So they didn't have to learn language because language was already there. And like, you know, so it got up to this point. So everything was faster and faster because we already had that like mass
initial.
Yeah, we had that mass communication, like when like cells like communicate, you know, there's all sorts of like communication that's happening between people all over the world, like the 100 monkey
monkey effect, exactly.
Right.
Collective consciousness.
Yes, exactly, a collective consciousness. So now that was the other thing with the 2012 is like we're getting to the galactic age, and the galactic age is like, well, now we're starting to connect with the galactic. We don't have to learn all these other things that we already know. And it was like I have to go look, but all the different levels are represented in the pyramids, in the Mayan pyramids. So each level would be considered like an age of like however many millions of years. And then towards the end, it was only like a really short period of time, like 10,000 years, or most recently, I don't know when the galactic age started before the other one. And right before the galactic age was the mass communication, which is when the internet was invented, and like all this type of like super fast communication. And so now the galactic one is like the one that we're like the highest one, I think,
right,
like pretty much that we're into now and getting into. And that's like when we're going to be able to like evolve to that level. Yeah. We'll have to, Mayan Magics. It's a great website to learn about like just Mayan calendar stuff.
That's really cool. I would love to look into that. And like a lot, it's interesting because like I'm finding out a lot of that stuff from like Clifford Mahune and like David Longbar Cinepass or whatever. Like there are these like Native American elders who are coming out now and like speaking about basically their religion, their teaching is that the star people like seeded them here, and
yes,
you know,
the creation stories have it right.
Yeah, I mean, and they like claim that they have ongoing connection with star people. That's what what are they called? Starts with a C. Chinos or
Cherry?
No, it's
Cherokee.
No, it's like those little dolls that they make, but they're called chinos or
Kachina dolls. Yes, I was thinking about the Kachina dolls. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, those are star people, and like when they come to them in ceremony or whatever, and they gave them information or whatever. And the reason that they're starting to share stuff right now is because
we're at the age to do it.
We're at the age to do that.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of cool creation stories around the about star people and how they've always been here, like that we've always communicated with them. And I don't know, it was pretty much until like, I don't know, we just decided to forget on purpose within the last, I don't know how many years. I would say it would be like the last 15,000 years. I don't even know. Maybe it's been longer than that. How long has pretty much the patriarch
I mean, it could be since like the last big flood, like, which
maybe
that was like, I mean, it looks like, I mean, it's starting to look like basically, there's like geological evidence that there was massive flood, at least like between 10,000 to 5,000 years ago, that covered or basically destroyed pretty much everywhere.
Exactly.
Most of the world. And that could have been when a lot of, you know, knowledge was lost or kept or whatever, and like indigenous,
right.
like lots of different subsections survived, you know, but it seems as though a lot of knowledge was selective at that point afterwards.
Yes. Yeah. Well, there's also intentionally hiding some of the calendars, like, or destroying them on purpose because they really had a lot of information that maybe the elites or whoever ran the world didn't want us to see, or maybe they were unintentionally destroyed. But anyway, there's a lot of the history was already erased, or just because of natural, like if
or,
the calendar, wear and tear.
Like Napoleon's men shot the nose off the Sphinx, you know, like in the 1800s or whatever. Like they were just like, as target practice, they shot the nose. I mean, just like stuff like that always like hurts my heart a little bit. But it was before I was born. But you know, it's just like, you know, all wars do is just like destroy, you know.
Or potential.
I mean, like there's a word for where you basically you defame it and take the face off of something and then like reappropriate it towards your culture.
Yes, that happens all the time.
Happens all the time throughout history. Has always happened. The Trajan column has like, you know, like there's big menorahs they took, and like just all this stuff like in Rome that you can like go and look, and it's just it's crazy, like a big obelisk and all the things that have been taken is crazy, and who knows what's really going on. But I do think it's one of those things where I don't know. I think I'm waking up. I hope, and so that means other people have got to be. And
exactly,
is real.
Yeah, exactly. As one person starts to wake up and more people do, then it's easier for other people to do. So whatever work you're doing, like for your self work and like expanding your consciousness or connecting somehow to spirit, like you're helping other people do that. As you heal yourself and your own wounds, you're helping other people. And as other people do that, they help you too. It's like, it's just inevitable. That's just the way it's going to go. Mm.
So, I mean, we can, I don't know how deep you want to go into this, but how do you reconcile or deal with like when you hear about like the darker conspiracies?
I personally try to avoid them as much as I can because I'm an anxious kind of person to begin with, and I get nervous. And so I don't really want to put my attention to it. And I truly believe that when you put your attention to something that is more positive, then it grows. Yeah. So I do try to avoid that, although it's inevitable that I come across it. And I do get like kind of sucked up into it because there may be truth to it, but I just feel like I'm going to just keep working on how am I going to bring the vibration to myself up and to like my environment, the people that I work with, like the people that I live around, and try to avoid it. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I also am like where your attention goes, your energy flows, or whatever that kind of thing is. Like I definitely, I mean, like I've been on a news diet, like a regular person or a 3D person news diet since, I don't know, 3 years ago. And it's been the most successful diet I've ever been on. And it just makes me so much happier. And I'm not that big on social media because I don't really care what you ate for dinner. And, you know, like whatever, it's just like, I don't know. Like, I think it's really kind of, there's an inorganicy about, I think that's not a word, but about like being like, oh, so I saw your kid, you know, is playing baseball and that you have a kid and, you know, that you live in New Jersey now, or that I would rather like whenever, if I do see you again, like I'd rather organically find out what's going on in your life rather than no, I don't know. I just feel like that we're our own paparazzi is kind of bizarre, and it's kind of like a weird social experiment that I'm not really, I've decided I'm not really wanting to participate so much in. But anyway, with that note, I just, it does, like, everything does boil down to like the fact that like we are such parasites and that we are like stuck in these patterns and all that. I do sort of have to sometimes go like, is it all our own doing, or is there outside influence on that? And so like I do sometimes go back to like, okay, well, how influential is this other stuff? So yeah, I mean, like I definitely I get taken down the rabbit hole a little bit, but at the same time I try not to, if when I feel it start affecting my mood, I go like, all right, too much of the cabal crap or whatever this is going on. Like, let's do like a loving healing meditation, or like let's focus on something cool,
Yes.
or you know, whatever. Like, and I
Exactly.
mean, then I go into like let's try to learn how to be magic. Like, I want to learn how to like channel. I want to learn how to do telepathy. I want to learn how to fly. I want to learn how to like move stuff. I want to learn how. I mean, like, then I'll start researching some kind of crazy thing like that. But
Yeah, that's great. Like, exactly. Like, I just research stuff that I like to research too. It's better. Otherwise you get sucked in. And then like, well, anyway, like even if you do get sucked into something negative, it's like, okay, if you're able to be self-aware and be like, okay, I'm going to put the brakes on there and
well,
focus on.
and send that ideal love. Be like, oh, that whole little thing seems like a big bag of suck. So
Right.
let's just like send some. Let's hope that all gets, you know.
Yes. You know, that's great because from my job, I'm on the computer a lot. And I feel like when I'm not in nature enough, I know it and I get totally irritable.
Mm.
And I'm like, I'm too much into the computer. I'm too much into social media, or I'm not that much into social media. Usually I'm working, but if I am, then I could see triggers though. I could see how like, oh yeah, this is cool. I'm going to read some article. This is interesting. Maybe I'll get some, I follow like crop circle stuff. So I do get that on social media so that I can get into it. But then there's other stuff that really gets me like triggered. And I'm like, this is really annoying me. I can't believe this. And then I'm like, wait a minute, I'm actually spending time thinking about this. And what am I supposed to do? Make a comment in a post to somebody that I don't even know about it? Like,
Right.
I'm not gonna. And so it is actually, you could feel the energy there. That's intense. And so with the internet itself, I feel like it's actually such a great tool, but if we could send love into it and that it pops out when whoever's reading it, viewing it, seeing it, whatever, that that we're spreading our love that way too, because we can use electronics to do that. But I feel like right now it's pretty tough. It's pretty tough out there if you do see it on social media, because
Yeah.
stuff
I
in the
mean,
news, like I've avoided news personally myself, but then it comes in through social media. So
yeah,
it's
exactly.
hard to avoid
And
it.
I do Reddit. Like I'm kind of like a big Redditor, and like, cause like there's a lot of like you can like kind of get like I can get my news down to, or like the things I'm interested down to like a tiny little circle, and like that, I like to stay up to date with, I have a lot of stuff I listen to a lot of podcasts, do a lot of YouTubing, or like listen or watch a lot of YouTube videos and stuff. I have a lot of people I follow and stuff, and I get like dinged of their subscriptions and these kinds of things. But yeah, like you then hear what they say, which then leads you doom to doom to doom to doom. And as soon as I also feel that disconnect, I kind of also have to be like, alrighty then, like
Yeah.
this is why I even decided like not to even like have an opinion about politics at all, is because first of all, it's like in the US when there's like the Democrat, the Republican thing or whatever, right? Like for like if I'm going to sit here and go like, oh well, this is what's right and this is what's right and this is what's wrong, does the fact that I'm sitting here letting my blood pressure get up talking about like this passionate prospect, is that gonna, am I gonna run for local government? Am I gonna actually like do something that changes it? If I'm not, then I'm not gonna like let it bring my mood down and like let that 20 minutes that I sat there and did my little rant affect anything in my life. Because if I'm not gonna personally change it, then I don't really know exactly what good it's going to do me to spend my energy there. That's sort of like how I feel. So like I like to try to be involved in things that, or focus my energy on things that like I know that I am willing to personally put some form of action into
Yes.
changing or going into or focus into, you know?
Yeah.
So like, I mean, like I have gotten really the last 2 years really into alternative building and permaculture and this kind of stuff. And I haven't done quite the action that I want to, but at least I feel like my research is getting pretty thorough to where if and when I do build something, it is going to be pretty non-parasitic.
Yes. Well, there's so many possibilities. Nothing has to be parasitic, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The problem I have with this, with like reading stuff on the internet or trying to not be involved with stuff, is that then I don't know if I feel like responsible, because I feel like I know that I need to do something, but yet if I'm not, like if there's an injustices really bother me, you know, like, and if I think there's an injustice, it bothers me. So then I think, well, how am I going to change this? And that it should bother me because it's an injustice, but at the same time, like, not consume me, or feeling like impotent and I'm not doing anything and therefore I'm not able to change anything, or just feeling stuck. Like, so I don't know. I always go back and forth with this. This is one of my struggles.
It is. It's a big struggle because you're kind of like, well, like if like people are doing horrible things to like kids and women and all that stuff, it's like, do you really like want to live in a world where that's like a reality? And then you're in it, and if you know that it's really going on, like, you know, like but that's why I think it's like, for me, I try to, like think about the whole, like maybe we consciously came here and all this stuff, or, you know, we chose our path or whatever, and like try to like be like, I can't rectify any of this in my brain. So what I'm going to do is just send it love.
Right.
Exactly. And I know that that's corny, but it's like the only thing that I can do. So it's like, I just want, like, I'm like, like I said, I like try to heal myself. And then like, if I got any extra left over and I'm feeling like I got some extra good energy, I just like send out some universal love to something that really needs it.
Right.
I don't need to know the details of what needs it, but if for whatever needs it, can have it, you know?
Yeah, it's tough because it's like, I guess maybe I get too into thinking about what other people think about what actions or it's like, you know, okay, I mean, all right, we won't get into it so much, forget it, because I don't want to bring it up, but it's like, oh, thoughts and prayers. You can imagine where that's, we're sending thoughts and prayers, you know, and it's like, but nothing ever changes. And that's the joke about it. But then I'm like, but I personally think that if you're really, we actually can change it. We actually can change things, not through thoughts and prayers in a really superficial way, but believing it and making changes and making small changes about ourselves and the situation that we're in and the privileges that we have. Like, we can actually change things. And it doesn't have to be like going out to every protest or demonstration or like, I don't know, whatever, but there are things that we can do that
I mean, like, it's like, for instance, as a flight attendant, it's like, we have training now for like trafficking, to where like we have to ask each person, like, what do you want to drink? What do you want to drink? What do you want to drink? Because like a big telltale sign is like when like somebody speaks for them, or like they don't look like they belong with these people and they look like they're miserable, and they can't say like, oh, I want a soda, like, or I want a water. Like, it's like, he'll have water, she'll have water. I mean, you know, it's like, you know, so like we're in our training, we were asked to look at every single person individually and ask them what they want. And I know that's awesome. Like a little thing, but it's interesting because like 99.9% of everybody answers for themselves. But every once in a while you do have like either like, it's like that controlling husband, or that like, or, you know, like whatever, or there's a lot of times where it's just like a natural, like the mom's just like, oh yeah, he's going to have an apple juice and she'll have a water and put a lid on it, please, or whatever. But, it does like help you to kind of like scan out if there's a situation that you get a feeling that you're not so sure what's happening, because like a lot of things go through the airlines. And then, you know, it kind of helps us to, you know, and like I know I haven't personally seen anything that I thought was super horrible, but I do know some other flight attendants that have caught stuff. So, you know.
No, it's so important to be vigilant and to know that. That's great that you're receiving that kind of training. So important.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's just one example of like people are talking about stuff. So the awareness has come up to where like, you know, that's
Yeah.
like one little front line, like gate, or, you know, like that.
Yeah,
Maybe,
like something that you can
have
change
something
to,
to,
you
yeah.
have control over something, like you can be intuitive and like be aware, be conscious of
Just
what's
be
happening.
vigilant about, like, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Cool. Well, that's good. Yeah. Otherwise social media can bring you down.